Well, while we're waiting for her to return, I did have another question that maybe I can ask in the meantime.
Hold on, can I actually get in on that one?
Sure, go for it.
So, Matt, at least I did mute me until now. Aaron's laughing now too. To be on the hiring side of this is difficult, right? Because you're trying, if you're like a VP of HR right now at a company or talent acquisition of whatever the title might be, you're trying to figure out what's the plus or the minus of being remote, being hybrid, going back into an office. If you're now with a company that is larger than 100 people, so now you need to be vaccinated and doing checks. If you're a government contractor, it doesn't matter if you're remote, you have to be vaccinated. So when we talk about how does this impact a company they're hiring, it makes a huge difference. So I noticed that my legal friends and my HR friends are speaking about what's the gas of the percent of the people who are going to leave a particular company because of a particular decision that's made. And so for job seekers, sorry about that, at the event. So it is though for job seekers is to figure out how is this going to impact me in my role, right? I'm seeing candidates now, people are now becoming candidates saying, I don't want to go back to the office on January 3rd. So some companies are seeing an influx who are remote or hybrid receiving candidates right now because people, I don't want to go back to the office, period. There are people now saying, I want to go back to an office. I'm tired of being on my own. And some of those companies are seeing an influx of people. So that's the impact on the hiring side of this, of what's been going on for the last 18 months.
And I want to just give you a chance, Eve, to kind of finish where you left off since we had some technical difficulties.
Yeah, I think, Paul makes a lot of great points. And I think the hiring process changes dynamically or drastically too. Before you might be seeing like a really long hiring process where it's like a few weeks. Now companies are getting smarter because what's happening to us on the hiring side is that we're losing candidates in the middle of our hiring process if we take too long. So before we might have had 3 or 4 interviews, now we have like one big group interview and we're trying to meet the candidate schedules. So that's just one of the little things that's changing. There's so many other things has changed the dynamic of hiring right now. I want to, give the floor to someone else to kind of touch on some of these points, but it's wild out there, you guys.
Aaron, as a hiring manager, or as an engineering manager rather, how do you, adjust to the whole COVID thing? Is it different? Is it easier? Is it more difficult?
So one thing about being at a giant company is that there are certain things about policy where my hands are tied, right? Like I can't change how many interviews we do, whether I think we have the right number or not. But one thing that I've definitely observed is that it's important to move fast. I can't emphasize that enough. We'll have the good candidates are being swooped up midstream. And I think that that's actually one way that Minnesota companies can have an advantage over these particularly like the big coastal tech companies that, they can outcompensate. You can't compete. You can't compete with their money. Like if you could, you would have already, and you can't. So, you're not, so you can't. But I know 2 people who have dropped out of, and I just know them personally, who have dropped out of my company's process because they got local offers sooner. And that matters. Like people want a job. So that's one thing that you can do locally is just move quick.
And Matt, did you have anything to add to that?
I feel like this is like the easiest layup in the world. Like I am one of the people Aaron's talking about who like got referred to work at Trello early in my search, and like Trello took so long to get back to me. Not to poo-poo Trello, like Trello sounds like a fantastic place to work, but like if I've already gone through my whole hiring interview process and gotten offers at multiple companies, and now I'm sort of debating offers, if it takes you that long to get back to me, like you're gonna have a hard time hiring.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if you're a candidate, be articulating to your recruiter or whoever's shepherding you through the process where you are with things. So, right, if we're trying to figure out, I spend so much of my time on calendars and asking candidates, where are you at in the process, so I can make sure that we get through our process so that you're evaluating, like with Matt, 2 or 3 offers at the same time versus being able to having them staggered, because that sucks as a candidate. right? And so I, as a recruiter, I'm asking candidates all the time, I'm going to give you our timeline. I'm going to suggest you, here's what our process is. Please tell me how your evolution of your search is going so I can match up with you.
Yeah, I just like really, I want to emphasize that just because it's so true. And I coach a lot of engineers who are looking for work. And there seems to be this like attitude that like there's something pushy or weird about that. And one, it's like culturally, that's not like no one's going to hear that and be like offended. And two, it's actually information we super want because that can get you to the front of the line. It can help us understand where we sit. Like it's so important. It's so important. Just let us keep everybody involved.
Yeah, and I'll
Yeah,
add to that too.
Having a timeline is super important. I can relate to what you said, and Matt, and what you said, Aaron. I think as a prime graduate, prime in the house, I think a lot of people can probably relate to not having a lot of money and not having a lot of time, especially when they're looking for that first opportunity, or maybe if they had an abrupt end to their previous opportunity. So being able to get a job, quickly and efficiently can be a huge determinant of whether or not someone comes to your company.
I was going to add to what Aaron said. Just if you're somebody who's looking for work, I feel like it's really always hard. Like you apply and then you hear nothing. And so like, you don't want to bother people because like, you're not like, if you're not a fit for the company, like whatever, or if you're just in a stack of resumes that the hiring manager just hasn't got to yet, like you haven't heard anything, but it's tough to understand the hiring manager's perspective. And sometimes it's like they're just getting inundated with applicants, and sometimes they're actually interested in you, and that little prod when you get an offer somewhere else, but you're really most excited about that company, can be huge. And that can make the difference between like just sort of like sitting sort of like right on the periphery of somebody's attention to, oh gosh, we got to get you an offer immediately.
It can also make the difference for like, let's say, the manager loved you. They do want to hire you. Someone else in the process is saying, oh, we should really wait and see more resumes. Or I've got this other person I want to talk to. If you come to me and tell me you've got another offer and I already wanted to go to bat for you, I was just being overruled. The ability for me to go to whoever is kind of like needs to rubber stamp this and say, look, we're going to lose this person if you don't give me an offer by tomorrow. That is huge. Like that can be the chip that moves it internally too.
The last thing a hiring manager should be doing, like let's take it back to my dating analogies I always use, right? I don't want to move on this candidate because I want to see these other ones first. Doesn't work in the dating world either, right? Either you're in or you're out. Either you want to see these people or you don't. Make a decision and let's go. So if you're a hiring manager and you're listening to this and you want to see more candidates, good luck to you.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key things that has changed too in this COVID era, right? Where, before you were waiting for all of the candidates to come in, it was a hiring manager's market, and now it's a job seeker's market. And you just gotta change your mentality, right? And it's not just you, it's the people around you. So make those, I'm talking to hiring managers right now, make those connections with their HR people, change the internal way of doing interviews, raise your hand and say, this is an issue, I'm having trouble hiring, and get them behind you, right? Like, so to be competitive in this market right now, there's one thing that's holding Boston Scientific back. We do drug testing. It sucks. Like, where's you're competing with Bay Area companies that are not doing drug testing, but we're manufacturing, right? And so we got to find these areas in which we could win a candidate over. And like for us, it's more of the mission, right? Like we save lives over here. And so we need to be able to find those candidates that can kind of tap into that need and that vision for their future and for their career. And so it becomes really hard, for the hiring manager to do that. So yeah, advice for hiring managers: change the way you hire.
Here's an exercise. Get a whiteboard and actually point every time you have a candidate touch point. And then figure out, sorry, at least they're breaking now. The idea is to whiteboard the hiring process. And if you've got 127 points, can you get it down to 100? Can you get it down? You can't not do a drug test, but can we take out hours and days along the way so that you can still shorten the whole process up? So I would challenge everybody who's hiring or a recruiter, do the whiteboard challenge and By the way, you'll freak out when you start realizing how many points you have.
And just as a quick reminder, we would love to see your questions. If you can drop your questions down in the Ask a Question box at the bottom of the Crowdcast screen, we'll definitely ask those questions on your behalf as we move into this deeper. So kind of piggybacking off that last question, I wanted to know from you, what is something that you wish candidates would understand or know that they usually miss when they're applying for jobs at your companies?
I'm the only one unmuted, so I'll go first. This is especially for new people. Like this is one of your first jobs or you're just coming out of boot camp. Not so much in my current position because I'm not hiring junior devs at the moment, but by previous role, we were open or even had positions that were for junior developers. And I would get literally dozens, 100 resumes from people very early in their career, and they honestly all look the same. And I mean that metaphorically, I mean that literally sometimes, because you're being taught at Prime, like, this is how you make a resume, and that's great, but it means that I can glance at your resume and be like, Prime, 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 like, or, wherever you came out of. And so it's like, it kind of killed me because I wanted so badly to hire people earlier in the career. Like Matt and I have had many like impassioned conversations about this just for fun, but it's really hard because I want to know who you are. Like, especially earlier in your career, you probably don't have a ton of technical stuff to impress me with, and that's fine, but you got to find something else. You got to make it clear what your previous world was and how those skills are going to map. You got to figure out how to phrase things so that you sound professional but human, so that you stick with me a little bit. But you got to figure out how to differentiate yourself, because it's with just the piles and piles of resumes from early experienced people, it's just really hard as a hiring manager.
Well, so as a hiring manager, then give people the opportunity to show themselves, right? So Aaron's right on the candidate side, but then hiring managers and recruiters, again, I'm just imagining that's my focus for today, right? How can we talk to recruiters to stop being a tool? Trying to figure out how to put it politely, but that's the best way I got it. Like, give people an opportunity to have a conversation. Give them an opportunity to talk about their experiences pre a boot camp, a university grad, to explain why those things matter into the role that they're going to be applying for. Like, give them an opportunity. But if this is where recruiting or hiring has failed, right? Because we're still doing it resume, LinkedIn profile, maybe a cover letter. And how do we figure out what kind of a robot you're going to be for us when we're looking for humans, but we're treating people as widgets? And we've got to stop doing this. Like, it has not worked for us. It didn't work for us. It will not work for us.
Yeah, I want to kind of
Eve, just curious.
Yeah, I want to build up on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is kind of related. I was just curious, like, how do you get to know your candidates? Like, what's your process? What kind of things are you looking at? If you could comment on what Paul and Aaron said as well.
Yeah, so I want to maybe comment on that first. I think a lot of people will say, it's who you know, it's not what you know, and that's so true. Because especially as a new person coming into the tech world, you got to network. You got to go to these events. We got, all these great events Ministar is putting together, right? Hey, shout out to Ministar. Attend them, right? And talk to people. The person sitting next to you might be your next source for a job. You never know. And the other point is, like, on your resume, the people who are coming from a boot camp, you likely have a slew of other experience behind you. It might not be industry specific to tech, but that's so important to show, because we don't hire you for your technical skills. We hire you for your experience in maybe other industries. Those skills will translate. So make sure you don't downplay that. And so hopefully I answered that question. Key, did you want me to touch on any other points?
Yeah, I was just curious, like, when you're looking for a candidate, do you what kind of background research do you do outside of the resume to learn about the candidate?
I personally don't do a ton of background research. I might look at LinkedIn a little bit to kind of see how active they are on LinkedIn, what are they liking, what other interests they might have. So for example, what do you volunteer with? What are, maybe you're on a nonprofit board, or you're, spending your time here and there. Just really do a little bit of searching on the candidate to kind of know them personally. And I think that stuff is really cool to put on a resume as well. And we just don't have a lot of time to dig into a candidate, especially when you have a ton of resumes. But yeah, like common connections. I think common connection is a key, because it's, like if I have two candidates on the table and one comes with a really, really high recommendation from someone I know, and the other is an unknown, but they might have interviewed really well as well, I'm likely going to choose the person with that personal connection.
That's really powerful. So Matt, you have an organization called the Invisible Network. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And then also, how do candidates convey who they are, tell their story, and share who they are, while also kind of adhering to the mission of your organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. And I guess responding to what you're all just saying kind of dovetails in nicely. And like for job seekers, I think what's tricky is like you've got to be able to tell your own story. And like if you're coming out of a boot camp and your resume looks the same as everybody else from your cohorts, like you got to figure out how to communicate who you are and what makes you different to whoever it is that you're trying to convince. And I think, people in the chat are saying cover letters, cover letters, cover letters. I mean, to Eve's point, you find a job through who you know. It's not so much like putting together the best application. If the hiring manager is really, really busy and that you're one of 200 applicants, they might not even look at your cover letter. They might quickly scan your resume and just kind of like pass. And so like the personal connection is almost always going to have way more weight than anything you write and put into an application. With all of that said, like frankly, like our interviewing and hiring process is mostly broken. And I think that like how much the market has changed in the last year with remote work being here forever now, like it's not going away. And with salaries inflating fast, it's like the process before where employers would say, hey, come to us. You have to convince, you as a job seeker have to convince me as an employer that I should hire you. Like that's shifting. And it's really good that that's shifting. And I think like the overwhelming demand for like, every role, but especially senior engineers, I think is making employers realize that they have to proactively do the work to convince candidates to come work for them. And so to tie that into Invisible Network, so Invisible Network is an anonymous job search platform. It's kind of like an inverted job board where you're looking at a list of people, not jobs. And so everything's anonymous, both to protect privacy, but also to reduce bias in the hiring process. And so what that means is if you're a senior engineer and you're getting aggressively courted by employers, but you want to sort of maybe define your dream job and put out, hey, I'm open to a new gig, but I also don't want to reveal my identity to protect my privacy, like you can do that on Invisible Network. And then the nice thing is that we're encouraging that behavior with employers, where employers have to request to meet you. So we're flipping that power dynamic completely. And I think that it's really good, like the current trends that are happening are as a whole really good because it's forcing employers to reassess, okay, let's think about the candidate experience. Let's think about how we can make our company a really great place to work, and how we can convince people that this is a good place for them to join. And so Invisible Network, it's exclusively focused on developers and technical roles, which was a recent change. And I see a lot of people in the chat who are friends, who are customers, who are users, and I can drop a profile or two in here just as an example of what it looks like. And the thing I think that's one of the things that makes Invisible Network unique is that a profile on Invisible Network is a way to communicate, like, this is my story, this is my background, this is what I'm looking for, and this is my ideal gig. And the nice thing is that people are defining it not with a specific company in mind. So it's not like you're trying to tailor everything to a specific company. It's that you're tailoring what you're saying more to what your ideal thing would be. And so sorry for taking up so much time, but that's my soapbox explaining Invisible Network. I appreciate the softball question, and I'll drop a profile here in the chat for you all to see what I mean.
That's awesome. So we're kind of talking a little bit about how some of the dynamics of the hiring environment has changed since COVID, but also just in general because of technology and remote work. Are you seeing a lot more candidates who are active in social media? Social media playing a bigger role in visibility of candidates? Could someone just sort of speak to that, the role that maybe like LinkedIn or GitHub or other social media platforms play?
I would say, kind of ironically, I think social media, as we sort of traditionally picture it, which is like, I write tweets, I post on LinkedIn. I feel like that actually was more relevant pre-pandemic. At least, and I can only speak from like how my social worlds works, but it was sort of like you'd go to a conference and you'd like maintain connections on Twitter, or you'd somehow like be networking with people in multiple places, and that brand that you were building on whatever social platform you were good on, like that really did have a lot to do with how people perceived you. And if they Google you, what do they get, whatever. And I feel like, one, people are not as much doing the brand building on Twitter, partly because Twitter's role in like the past 2 years, maybe even 4, depending on you want, like it's just made Twitter a really different place. It's not like a professional place the same way it was. I do see people who post on LinkedIn unironically, which I never thought I'd see, but like it's big now. And I like the level of nuance in recruiter tools on LinkedIn would blow your absolute mind. So even if you're not someone who wants to like post on there or whatever, I think if you're looking for a job and you don't have a profile on LinkedIn that you have like put effort into, like getting all the right keywords and all the right history on there, I can't tell you how much you're missing out. Because that is how recruiters find people right now, period, end of sentence, like especially in this remote world.
Yeah, I want to echo that too. Like, I don't really use Twitter much. I use it more for personal reasons. I don't keep it as a professional platform. But I think LinkedIn is really getting more visibility lately. And like, I hate to plug LinkedIn, right? Because no one likes a social network, but I do think LinkedIn is where you want to be if you want to find a job. And maybe Paul, you can kind of talk about the recruiter aspect of it and how you would find a candidate through LinkedIn. What are your methods? Because for me, like I got my job through a LinkedIn reach out from a recruiter from Boston Scientific. So they obviously found me some ways, and I didn't turn anything on. I didn't like turn on I'm looking for a job. I didn't like have anything in there, but they reached out and it just worked out.
So first, I just posted this in the chat. If you are a recruiter hiring manager and you haven't updated your LinkedIn profile in the last 6 months, like that's what you should be doing this weekend for starters. And if you haven't done a status update and you haven't said you're hiring and you haven't promoted your company and you haven't said you're in the top workplace list, you have failed and you need to start doing that this weekend. Like that's table stakes. If you're not doing this, you're doing it wrong. If I'm a candidate, it's also the same way though, right? Like I kind of talk about like leaving a popcorn trail in the forest. Right? Like I'm going to leave this update here. I'm attending the AMA today, and I was at Mini Bar a few weeks ago, and this is the project that I'm working on a photo of you with your screen and the code that you're writing. You should be doing those updates, just as recruiters and hiring managers should be doing too. A hiring manager should be taking the silly Zoom screenshot of them and their 9 people and putting it on LinkedIn and say, this is the project or the thing that we're working on today. Because we know candidates are creeping on us on LinkedIn. Let's give them something to see. I'm clearly animated today. I've been fired up for this since we finished the last one 2 weeks ago, because when did everybody get so freaking lazy? Like so many job seekers are waiting for a recruiter to find them. And so many recruiters, hiring managers, and companies are waiting for people to find them. How about we go and actually interact with people, like old school? Like the amount of time we spend waiting on someone to reach out to us is insane.
I would flip that a little. Like I agree. To state it in a slightly more constructive way, I would say that if it basically like fortune favors the bold, like just go do it. Like if you're passively, like if you're not really looking for a job, there's nothing wrong with hanging out and waiting for those emails to get in your inbox. And believe me, at a certain point of experience, you will want a separate tab in Gmail that is just where the recruiters get auto-filed. But like that's fine to be passive. But like if you are actively looking and you're not actively reaching out, like no, it's not going to work. But on the other hand, you're going to just give yourself like this first mover advantage in a big way for almost no work by just being proactive.
Erin is way more, she says this a lot better than I do. If you're doing a job search in 2022, I would slowly start doing it now, right? So start doing those status updates, start talking about the things you're doing. If you're going to be recruiting in 2022, you should already be doing these same things now, so that when a candidate looks you up in February of 22, they see the 9 status updates about the things you've been reading, the cool things your company is doing, so that they will be more attracted to you, right? We are trying to attract people in this job search recruiting game. And that's why I always use the dating analogy, because for better or for worse, it's pretty close.
Yeah, I can speak just a little bit from my own experience too. So right around the time when I was getting my first certification in AWS, I started a technology blog, and I didn't think anyone would care or read it. It wasn't even very well put together. But when I started looking for opportunities, I would have people tell me that they saw my blog, and that really shaped how they saw me as a professional. And it also helped them to see where my interests and my trajectory, were moving me towards. So I don't know if that helps anyone out there, but having some type of content that you consistently produce that is related to what you're passionate about, what you love doing, and then just showing that to people and making it easy for people to find that can be really helpful. Okay, just one more question, and then we'll hit up some of the audience questions that we've collected. Okay, so earlier we were talking about there's this waiting period between applying for a job and hopefully hearing back from someone. And we kind of touched on it just a few moments ago about being a little bit more maybe aggressive or a little bit more proactive in that process. How do candidates reach out to you and kind of poke and kind of get your attention without being annoying or bothersome? Just from the people that I've mentored and worked with over the past couple of years, one of the big concerns is I don't want to annoy someone, or I don't want to push someone away, or I don't want to bother someone. So what do you recommend candidates do in order to connect with you, to remind you that they exist, and hopefully kind of steer things a little bit further down the river, so to speak?
I think if you do a little bit of LinkedIn or maybe social snooping on the person you want to reach out to, like a hiring manager, you can likely see a little bit of their passions as well. So if you look at my profile, you'll likely see that I'm passionate about getting girls into STEM, women in engineering, and minorities, and just getting maybe even junior developers into the technology field. So I think if you kind of come at it from that angle, and if you're a diverse woman in tech, if you reach out to me, likely I will respond back to you, right? So do a little bit of snooping on who you're reaching out to and see what their interests are, and maybe you can kind of make a connection that way. And also, look at what professional organizations are a part of. Maybe they run a meetup, maybe they attend a lot of events, maybe they post about events, and trying to, kind of get in there and snoop. I had one person that sent me a LinkedIn message and ended up in an event that I attended the next day and introduced herself. I mean, that's key, right?
I feel like especially early career people tend to over-formalize this whole thing. And maybe that's partly I think it used to be formal. Probably, but the way I was taught in school was this is the etiquette of a job interview. This is the etiquette of reaching out to a hiring manager, dear sir or madam. And it's just it's not like that anymore.
We're normal people. We're not sir or madam.
Yeah, totally. Don't put 10 years on my life like that. No. But that means too that okay, so there aren't the same rules that you get to follow, which can give some kind of, it can be nice to have a script, but at the same time, they're not the same rules that you have to follow. So just be a person. And it means that there's a range of ways that you could connect that are totally reasonable and are going to depend on who you are and what your deal is and what your strengths are as a human and how you like to interact and this other person. So it's you can cold email me that might work if you manage to phrase a good email that it doesn't, I see it and I actually reply. There's a lot of work in that, and a lot of work to making an email that somebody actually replies to cold. But if you can figure out a way to get an intro, just like maybe we have a mutual friend, your chances of me saying something back to you have gone up huge. Maybe instead of like reaching out to me directly, it's like, join the social worlds that I'm in. And I don't mean that in a stocky way, like don't be a weird hoverer, but like just go participate in society. And like, we'll get to interact organically, and I'll get to see you as a person, and that is going to be an even bigger connection and a better way to get my attention potentially than an intro. So it's like there's lots of, or if I'm on Twitter and I'm having a conversation about something, you have something to add to, just do it. Like, don't make it weird, just do it. Just interact with hiring managers or whatever. Like if you know who you're trying to get in with, like interact on whatever level feels natural. And you're probably right, it's probably fine.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
So everything Erin said, yeah, 100%. But also, I want to sort of plus one that it's all about like, it's not a numbers game. Like if you think about like the number of unsolicited LinkedIn requests that people get, like one of my biggest pet peeves is people request to connect with me on LinkedIn without adding a note. And it's like, if I don't know you already, like why should I accept your connection to request? Like you want my email maybe? Or you, yep. And so what I would say to anybody is, it's not a numbers game, it's a quality game. And the thing is, if you can, instead of sending out like 100 applications in a day or in a week or whatever, like which sounds terrible and overwhelming as it is, like if you send 1 or 2 or 3 like thoughtful messages to hiring managers, right? Whether you know them or not, it's like if you have their email and you can send them a really nice message, and maybe if I'm using Eve as an example, if I watched your minibar talk on Korean skincare, I might shoot you a nice message saying, "Hey Eve, I saw your amazing minibar talk on Korean skincare routines, and I loved it. I just want to say thank you for putting it together. Also, by the way, like I'm a junior dev. I just graduated from Prime. I'm looking for a new gig. I saw that you had these openings at Boston Scientific. I'd love to chat with you." Right? Like that doesn't have to be long, but the important thing is that it's thoughtful and that like you're knowing your audience, and you got to make the assumption that like all of the people that you want to network with are very, very busy, and it's really just like think of the person as another human, and do what you can to sort of get to know them on the internet if that's possible, and write a thoughtful message. And whether that's a LinkedIn request with a thoughtful note, or if that's a direct email, like either of those two things are going to be much more well received than a blind application and nothing else comes through or whatever.
Awesome, thank you so much. And before we get to the audience questions, I wanted to toss in 2 ideas. One is volunteering, volunteering at different tech-related events. Ministar hosts, traditionally has hosted live events in the past, but now we're doing digital things as well. Just makes you a part of the community, makes you visible. And then also helping other people. When you're helping other people, those people will be able to speak, to your awesomeness and to your greatness, and be able to champion you as well and sponsor you potentially when you're looking for an opportunity. You never know who's going to end up where. So kind of being a part of the community, is a great way to make yourself known. So our top voted question here is related to hiring entry-level candidates. And the question is, how do you hire entry-level candidates in a fair way? And the comment is that there seems to be a lot of pushback against live coding because of the kinds of people and personalities that may be privileged in that type of process. Starting with you, Paul, do you have any thoughts about that? How do you hire, in a fair way for entry-level candidates?
I mean, the best way to do it is to do it blind, right? Take everybody's name off their resume. It's hard to do. It's a very involved process, but if the people who are screening resumes are not looking at names or where they went to school, I mean, that's a start. I struggle with this one because I always try. I know that I have an inherent bias somewhere in me, right? And I try to I try the best I can to always think about how can I I always try to figure out how do I include someone in the process versus reasons to exclude them from the process. Like, let the hiring manager, as a recruiter, let the hiring manager test them out that way. But like so many, for me, it's I want, if we want diversity, equity, inclusion in our companies, then we need to stop hiring everybody who looks, acts, and went to school like we did. And so for me, I think it's my job to find reasons to include. So the premise even kind of, I've got like 6 things in my head and 4 of them I can't say out loud. I get frustrated with this because I just want people who can code or be a product manager or do UX design, right? I did a presentation a number of years ago with my attorney. Thankfully, I've never had to use her. She's like my big sister. And the idea was, here's how I use social media to find candidates, right? And so every time I did, here's what I did, she goes, he got you sued. And every time I did a thing, she goes, and this is how we got you sued. At the end, though, I added a slide that she didn't see ahead of time. And I said, and this is how I gave you a more broad candidate pool. And I go, beat that. She goes, and I can't. Like for me, recruiting is so broken right now. Like the hair on the back of my neck is tingling. I swear to you, I'm sweating right now because I'm trying to contain this. If we have to take out the bias in our hiring, you've got a problem to begin with. Like if you know you have issues, if you have to have the conversation that we need to figure how to take out bias in the hiring, like you've got some other issues to get to first, from my perspective.
Matt, do you think that the coding examinations are helpful, for determining those entry-level candidates? How do you feel about this? I know it's kind of a controversial topic.
Oh gosh, I feel like Aaron and I, one time we gave a talk and we were like, man, this thing about coding exercises could be a whole talk in itself. And I'm so glad that like Aaron is here too to have this conversation. I mean, even Paul, I know you have a lot of opinions too. Man, yeah, coding exercises suck. I think if I was to like sort of like encapsulate our conversation so far, it's like it takes thought on both sides, right? If you're a job seeker and you want to find a job at this company, you got to be thoughtful and think about how best to sort of like make that first interaction with your hiring manager a good one, right? On the employer side, it also takes thought, right? You got to think about what the candidate experience is going to be like. And yeah, Paul already suggested, thinking about every single touch point that a candidate has to go through to work at your company. And if once you got it on a whiteboard, you're going to look and be like, oh no, this is very bad. There were other suggestions too that Paul had, but that's the one that I remember. In terms of coding exercises, especially for junior folks, you got to think through what the experience is going to be like for them. And I have a lot of feelings about take-home exercises, especially if they're timed. For one, like if you're going to give a take-home exercise, give very clear expectations about what the candidate is going to be measured on, and also what's expected of them, and also how much time it should take. Don't give them a hard cutoff, because holy buckets, that's stressful. Like I'll tell you, like I've done exercises before where it's like there was 4 in a row, and it was like you finish one of the exercises, and then it goes immediately into the next one. And what they don't necessarily like account for and cover is if you get flustered and you don't quite finish, that you still have to go into the next question. And like that was probably like one of the most stressful coding exercises I've ever done. One of the best coding exercises I've ever done was a pair programming thing. And I know you can't really do pair programming live right now, but even virtual pair programming, I think, is a really good way, especially to assess junior talent, because what you're not just looking for hard skills, you're also looking for how do they think about solving the problem. And to me, I know that it's time intensive. Like if you're on the hiring side and you need to hire somebody yesterday, devoting engineers time to pair programming with a prospective candidate is expensive. It's disruptive and it's expensive. There's no way around that. It is also the most thoughtful and respectful way to approach it. And so if you've got a candidate coming through who you're really excited about, I think giving an engineer, an hour or so of an engineer on your team's time to this person, so that they can go back and forth. Like they're going to come away, both sides are going to come away with a much better perspective about, is this a place for me, or is this a place where this person might fit? I want to let Aaron chime in because I know that Aaron has a lot of feelings.
I have so many things to say. We only have 10 minutes though. This is an interesting topic too, because like Matt said, we gave a talk on it, and like we actually have different ideas on this, and like we're both people who have thought about this whole world like a lot, and I think that that's important to keep in mind, is that this in particular is a thing on which reasonable people and also Matt and I can disagree. So it's like personally I advocate for giving people a choice. Some people strongly prefer like to have a time boxed whiteboard style coding exercise because their life's got shit in it. They don't have time to take home your 8-hour thing. And on the other hand, there are people who strongly believe that, or strongly prefer like not having someone look over their shoulder. So if you truly need a coding exercise, I firmly believe you need to give options. If you're going to ask somebody to do more than 2 hours, 4 hours tops, pay them. Like otherwise you're just letting them do your job by screening. And that's probably going to work, and it's probably been working because people need a job, but you know what, they don't need your job as bad anymore. So you're going to have to get more thoughtful. I think also for hiring managers, this goes right back to what Matt said in the very beginning, which is that we have to be thoughtful on both sides. And so if we want to get the right candidate, we gotta, my current like bug in my bonnet is that we suck at job descriptions. Like we put these job descriptions out there that mean nothing, that tell nobody anything about what the job will actually be like, and then we're surprised when people don't want to apply to them. It's like the job description is not a formality, it's the first point of contact someone has with this role you want them to do. So you got to sit down and think about, both for the job description and just so that you know you're hiring the person you need, you got to sit down and think about what will it take to be successful here? What problem am I actually trying to solve? What are actual requirements on day one and what are not? What are things that, like, sure, it'd be cool if you could do this, because I'd love to hire someone with 10 years experience for $50,000, but like, let's be realistic. What do you actually need and expect to hire? Write a good job description that people can see themselves in, that they can evaluate whether or not they're going to be a good fit before both of you waste time on conversations. So that right there can really scale down. And if you get a bunch of people who just reply and give you that same form resume and it doesn't say anything to you, like speak to you, I mean, like, and it doesn't speak to the role, then it's a lot easier to be like, hey, maybe this isn't a good fit. But if you put good content out there and you give people the ability to like explain why they are the person for this thing you said, oh my God, you get so much better candidates. You get so much more diverse candidates for a huge range of reasons I don't have time to go into. And you have a better, I often find you have better outcomes with the person you hire because you've put in so much good thought about what the role actually needs, what it's going to look like when they start, and the kind of person that is going to be successful on your team. I'll stop there.
So I think we have time for just one more question, and this will be a rapid fire question. So I'm going to ask each of you to think of 2 things for this question. Okay, so what can a candidate do to stand out, to really pop out when they're applying for a job so that they're not looked over? And we'll start with you, Matt.
Okay, what can a candidate do? Network your way in. Find a way to have a real live conversation with somebody before you, like, don't even waste your time applying. Just talk to somebody there first. It doesn't even matter if it's the hiring manager. Talk to somebody different at the company. And if it sounds like a place you want to work, ask for a referral to talk to the right person to talk to at the company after that.
Aaron, 2 things.
I don't know, Matt just said the best one. Like, that's such good advice. Like, if you're cold applying, you're rolling the dice. I guess the other one would maybe be a person online, and not like, don't, like, we've, thank God, moved away a little bit from like the world of crafting your personal brand. It's like, just be a person online so that when I go Google you, like, I'm not Googling you to find dirt. I'm Googling you to find what kind of person you are and if you're going to fit. Give me something to find, like, whether it's tweets or a blog or your face on the I gave a talk at Minibar or at my meetup. Like, just go be a person in the world. Let me see what kind of person you are.
And Eve. Do you have 2 suggestions?
Oh, two. Well, I'm gonna try for one. So what not to do, I guess. Maybe you can kind of infer that as a to do. I had somebody interview with me, and their background was like just full of boxes and just clutter, and they're in this like little tiny closet. And it just made me feel really uncomfortable. Like we're doing an online, interview, and their camera was up here, so you're seeing the top of their head. Like make sure you're interviewing from a place that's professional, and it gives me a sense of cleanliness, and I think you're a good person through your environment, your habit. Just don't let those little details go by. Make sure that you're portraying that you're a real human being and that you live in a okay environment. That's or blur your background, right, if you need to, because that can be distracting. Eliminate distractions.
Maybe we'll live in a future where everyone has a green screen.
Yeah.
And Paul, how about you? Could you give us 2 quick tips?
Generally, I'm going to pass. Here's the thing: it's common sense. Like, don't send messages you wouldn't want to answer to. Don't do the things that would annoy you. Think about why would you hire you, and treat this as a marketing exercise.
And I guess I'll go ahead and contribute too. I think one thing is if you have it within you to have a really cool or interesting landing page, doesn't need to be a full website or anything like that, but something that, really shows your personality in a digital way, I think is really helpful. And the second is if you're a software engineer, at least, and you're a beginner or entry level, having READMEs on your GitHub, projects that people can understand quickly what your code is intended to do. Even if it's not complete, still have something in writing so people can easily glean the goal and the direction of your projects.
Oh, can I add in my second one? I think you have to know your audience, because when you're going through multiple interviews with people, there might be some people that are technical that would want that information. And then there's going to be people that's just going to be like, you keep talking about databases and you kind of read the reaction of the people who's interviewing you. And it's like, okay, read that, take it to heart. Maybe they're not connecting with that, and change your approach.
That's great. I heard somewhere, I don't know if this is a fact, but I heard somewhere that for entry level applicants, the majority of what people are hiring you for is soft skills. So, perhaps that's something to think about if you're in the audience looking for that first opportunity. How can you use your soft skills and emotional intelligence to accommodate for the lack of experience?
Yeah,
With
you don't
that
have
being
any hard
said,
skills yet. So
yeah.
you don't have to pretend you do. What I want to know is, are you going to be someone I want to work with, and are you someone who can learn? You got to prove
Yeah.
those things
Absolutely.
to me.
Don't be afraid to say, I don't know the answer to that question, because I think as a hiring manager, you want somebody to say that at times. You can't know everything.
This is so good. Maybe we need like another session for this. We'll see. But thank you all so much for coming here. We really appreciate your time and your volunteering to speak to the community today. If you are interested in learning more about the events that Ministar hosts, all you have to do is follow us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And we hope to see you at our next events in the future. And that being said, my name is Keith Clark. I'm your host today, and we'll catch you later. Bye.
See ya.
Thank you all.